I want to talk about my yard again. Y'all like learn about my yard, right? All right, so I'm going to talk about new growth today. New growth. So these little things that grow on the side of my trees. When they grow on the side of the trees, they irritate me because I have to go out and have to chop them off. Now, I'm going to tell you, let's look at the next picture if we can. So the next picture is actually my front yard. This is the front yard. I have a lot of trees. There's a lot of chopping that gets going on. My bicep starts looking pretty good by the time I get done with it. Let me tell you what. I'm chopping away. You're just like, well, Matt, why don't you have click? It just doesn't look nice on the tree. So I got to go out there and chop it off. We see, the thing is about my trees here, look I took this picture this morning. They all look green and lush and everything, but let me tell you something about these trees. In the middle of these trees, there's dead limbs. And in the middle of these trees, there's some trees that have been attacked so much that they're actually starting to die and they're going to wither away. But right now, they still look green. Now you say, well, Matt, how do you know that these trees are dying? Well, I can tell you that when a storm comes through, there's a lot of limbs that hit the ground. And when those limbs hit the ground, that tells me that tree's got problems, that tree's got problems, that tree's got problems. Then I go look at it, and I can really see how much problems those trees really do have. Now, as always, this is for our life. See, we all stand here, and we all look good, and we're all green, and we're lush, but then there's problems that we have that we carry around. The problems that we really don't even know that we have until the wind starts to blow and the storm rolls in through our life. Then all of a sudden we're like, didn't know I had that. Am I right? So what I'm looking at is with new growth is how positive the new growth is in those trees. As much as it annoys me that those trees grow like that, it's positive for me because I know that that tree's healthy. I know that that tree is trying to grow and be more. And see, what's the point of the tree is it grows out those leaves so that way it can collect more sunlight. So it can grow out those leaves so it can collect more water. So that way it can grow and flourish and become something more. And it's only going to do that if it starts to grow more, if it starts to extend out, if it has new life that comes to it. Looking at our lives and what we have is if we stay happy with where we're at, we're going to die out because we're not collecting enough. Because, see, stuff does grow off. And, see, things do happen. And things happen like when a storm comes through, maybe one of the dead limbs that was on another tree fell off and hit one of my limbs. And when it hit one of my limbs, it took it down, and now all of a sudden I'm less one limb. Not always my fault. It just might be the stuff I'm around. So when I take and I have this new growth, yeah, it's irritating, yeah, but it gives me comfort. It gives me peace about that tree. It's a stupid tree, Matt. Well, you know what? I need to plant more. I need to plant more because of all the stuff that's gone bad, because of the things that have happened before, all the bugs and the droughts that we might have had, and the fact that my property was actually a scrub tree area, and the guy went and cleaned it all out and kept the best trees there. Well, you know what? Just because they're the best trees there doesn't mean they're our best trees. So I need to plant more. I need to harvest more. I need to put more out there. And I'll tell you one thing, I'm not going to put out, what kind of trees we got? Walnuts? I'm not putting walnut trees out. Promise you that. Those things will turn your ankle faster than you can imagine. And then what happens is during the summertime, like right now, we don't have to mow very much. All of a sudden, you got little walnut trees growing up everywhere. Am I right? So this morning I want to talk about the Bible story is actually, and we're going to start out with baby Moses. Now the thing about baby Moses is that why did his mom do what she had to do? Why did she have to put him in the water? Why did she have to make a basket and it talks about tarring it so that way it didn't float? Can you imagine being a parent and taking and deciding, well, the best opportunity for my child is actually to put my child in this basket and float it down the river? Kind of scary, isn't it? But she did what she had to do. She took and we know where the basket went. We know the basket went to the Pharaoh's daughter. So we know that it. I mean, I'm sure it was like, it's right there. Go, hurry up! She's out there, hoping that she would have some compassion for this little baby, and it worked. And then we know that what happened after that, well, then the baby, she pulled the baby out, and because she couldn't feed the baby, she took and said, hey, take this back to the Hebrew and go choose one of them. Well, who was the mother? Well, it was Moses' mother. How well did that work out? So yet, God gave her the idea, the timing, to go put him out at this time, and he came back to her. Now, the thing is what was the expectation? I'm going to take this off of the mother and off of his two mothers. And I'm going to put this expectation on what was the expectation of Noah at the time of his birth. Nothing. Noah had zero expectations from anybody at the time of his birth except for one. God was it. So in this whole time that he took and he was raised up, and he come up as a little boy, he was raised, once he was weaned, he went to the Egyptian side. Once he went to the Egyptian side, then do you think that he was raised with the Hebrew culture, or do you think he was raised with the Egyptian culture? The Egyptian, right? So he got to talk about the Egyptian gods and how the Egyptians did things and how everything Egyptian. And in fact, because they went and they started killing off the Hebrews, because the reason why that they're killing them off was because there were so many of them. And that's the reason why his life was put in danger in the first place. And so when they went to go kill off so many of them, they were going to kill them off. You can imagine how the Egyptians talked about the Israelite people. Oh, look at them. Oh, they're like leeches here. They came in, they came in 100 years ago and they never left. Just like that bad penny you can't get rid of. That's what, it's just so ridiculous that they're out. And he got to hear them talk about these people and degrade these people that eventually he figured out was his people. Now, we started asking, how did he figure out that they were his people? Now, I was talking to a guy this morning, and, when you take and you have a child that you're raising and you have other children that are yours, it's going to be a little bit different just because you look different. You don't look the same. I mean, people going right off the bat, they're going to take and a person could judge you right off the bat just on how you look. So he looked different. He looked like one of those. You can imagine him sitting on top of their palace and looking down and sitting there saying, because if he lived in a palace, he wasn't an Egyptian that lived in a hut that was living at the bottom of society. He lived in a palace. And you can imagine him looking down and sitting there saying, oh, look at them. Hey, bring us some more food. Come on now. My drink's getting hot. Come on, cool my drink down. Come on, guys. Those guys, they're worthless. I wish you'd just go away. He started figuring out, I'm one of those. I've been living my life this way, and I'm one of those people. So what did he start doing? He started to go out and look at his people that he's figuring out was his people. And he goes out into the land. He starts seeing how those people are treated. And when he sees how those people are treated, and he sees that an Egyptian is sitting there beating on one of his people and treating him wrongly, he takes and he goes and he kills that Egyptian. And he killed that Egyptian, and then he took the Egyptian and he hid him, thinking he was going to hide what he did away from everybody, until he went back again. And his people now said, what are you going to do? Kill us too? Now what happens to Moses then? He goes and Pharaoh finds out, because obviously people are talking. So people start talking and sit there. Did you see that Moses, he's underneath the Pharaoh. He's one of his sons. Did you see it? He took and he killed. And so what did Moses have to do? Because the secret was out. The secret was out of who he was. So he fled. Now when he took and he fled, he took and he went and he got married. He established a new life. He got comfortable someplace else. And whenever he went and got comfortable in the new place, and he is out going and herding the sheep, one day he takes and he looks up on the mountain. And when he looks up on the mountain, what did he see? Lo and behold, but a fire. Well, I wonder what happened. Well, fires happen, right? But I'm going to go check it out. So he goes up on top of the mountain. He sees a burning bush up there that wasn't burning. Now you're asking, see, my question always goes back to, if I was in Moses' shoe, how would I be? And if I was in Moses' shoe and I look and I saw that there was a bush that wasn't burning, but it was on fire, I'd be like, what did I eat this morning? Now I'm hydrated. I'm good. All right, I'm going to turn away real fast and look back. Nope, it's still there. I'm going to try to figure out something to explain the unexplainable. Because when something's on fire, it burns. We all know that. It gets so intense, it burns. But it didn't. As he starts walking up to it, when he walks up there, God says, stop. You want me to do God's voice?
Stop. You're on holy ground.
Right? And so he's like, wait, whose voice was that? And he sat there and he says, so he went and he takes his shoes off and he goes onto the holy ground and God starts to conversate with him. See, God brought him in. As I went through and I started reading this was, I'm going to tell you the blessing it is that you go and you read something that you read 100 times before, and it takes 101 times that you're reading it, and God sits there and says, you see? You see what you're reading? I want to tell you that I was actually sitting on my couch last night reading it, or yesterday afternoon, and as I was reading it, I couldn't help but to start smiling because the Spirit of God started flowing over top, sitting there saying, you see? You've read this before, but do you see? And what I saw was that the significance of the bush and the significance of him going on holy ground and the significance of him taking and making him kind of bow down to him, to a God that he never knew. How did we talk about he was raised? He was raised in the Egyptian culture, right? So he was raised in this Egyptian culture, and yet here's this bush that's talking to him. I never had a bush talk to me when I was in Egypt. So he's looking at it, and he goes, and he has to have this whole culture change, realization about how things are different. And then when he's sitting there talking to him, God starts telling him about what he needs to do, that he needs to go, that his people, the people that wasn't his people but was his people, the people that obviously he got so offended for that he went out and he killed one of his old people. This is like Jerry Springer stuff starting to go on. So he killed the old people to sit there and get to it for those new people. And so when he goes and God then tells you, this guy that couldn't control himself and kill it, tells you, say, hey, I know you weren't wanted. That's the way you feel, is you feel like you weren't wanted, but your mom did the best for you, and I took and guided the basket where we're supposed to be, and it went to the mother and said, it came back to you so that way you could have a little bit of your culture. But then it got put back into the place so that way you were up on high, so that way you could look down and you could see it, and you could be offended and be put in a place of leadership, so that way one day you could take and you become who you're supposed to be. I know you don't see that, but that's what it was. And so what starts happening with him, he says, hey, I need you to go out and I need you to go talk to Pharaoh. I need you to go talk to the Pharaoh, and I need you to tell him to let my people go because I see that my people are being oppressed, and I don't like it. Because, see, my question is, years before, 7 years of famine, why didn't they leave after the 7 years of famine? Because they got comfortable. They went there to be saved, they got saved, and then they got comfortable. Sound familiar? Can we put that towards our life? Can we have sometimes that we go and we're looking for something so much and we get saved, and then after we're there for a while, then it becomes just too easy? Am I right? So whenever he told Moses that, Moses actually went in Exodus 3:11, said, Moses said to God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? See, Moses had not figured it out yet because he didn't know yet, because he wasn't raised with it. Moses hadn't figured out that this was the God of gods, of gods, of gods, of gods. He says, God sat there and told him, He said, in verse 12, he went on and said, I will be with you. Who? The bush? The bush going to float away now? I mean, what did he know? What did he know of God? He's a baby Christian. Before it was Christian, he's a baby God believer. He's literally he's something that we look at and we see that now and be like, oh my Lord, but the Holy Spirit's fallen in this house today. And he's sitting there for the first time, sitting on top of that mountain at his older age, sitting there going, he's like, okay, so this is real. So all this stuff that they murmured about, that this God of Abraham, this is who it is. Look at the power that he has. Because if you want to look at it, all the stuff that happened, take away Noah, but most of the stuff that happened up to this point, that he wasn't a real public and figure God. Basically, who told anything that happened after Noah? Noah's people. All the other people were dead, so it wasn't like, oh, you didn't know what it was like before, because they were gone. It was Noah's people that was starting it. Well, so he's establishing that this is who God is. Now, I put Exodus 2:8 up here, and this is actually before. And this was how Moses, I keep saying Noah. I wrote it on my notes, too. I had to correct it this morning. Moses went in we'll look at Exodus 2:8, and it was actually his Egyptian mother that said she named him Moses because she drew him out of the water. See, at this moment, as Moses is standing on top of this mountain in front of this burning bush, God was drawing him out of the place that he was in. Perfect name. Because he was getting drawn from one place to get put into another. That's what his whole life was. See, he had to let himself get taken out of his comfort zone. On in Exodus 3, Moses said to God, suppose I go to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they ask me, what is his name? Then what shall I tell them? Okay, first and foremost, read that in a sarcastic voice. Right? Moses said to God, suppose I go to the Israelites and tell them, God, I'm the God of their fathers has sent me to you, and then they ask me, what is his name? Come on. He's a bush, burning bush. Right? Why would you believe me? I took and killed one of them. I wasn't one of them. I wasn't part of them. I wasn't that culture. I didn't get raised with them. I was one of them that was up on the hill that everybody took and etc. was jealous of. Why are they going to believe me? God. See, because I'm going to tell you right now, does it say that in the Bible like that? No, but it says it in my head that way. Because if I was in that position, that's me being nice. So God said to Moses, I am who I am. That is what you say to the Israelites. I am has sent me to you. All right, come on now. I am. All right. So if you're not a believer, what's I am? I am. If I sit there and tell you guys, because we sing the song like the great I am, I say that to you. Well, you're believers. You've gone to church. So when I say I am, he is the I am, you're like, yeah, he is. Whoa, yeah. To Moses, it was like, what? You got a case of crazy going on. I am? Well, you're showing enough power now, I guess. See, it didn't make sense to him because he wasn't a believer. Now, this is one of my great things, and this is one of the things I actually love about whenever people come up and talk to me before service about something that they had that week, and it's actually confirmation. Because see, it goes on to sit there and he tells him, he says, hey, I told the elders, I believe this is verse 18, he said, I told the elders, and the elders of Israel will listen to you. Why would the elders of Israel listen to Moses? Because God was speaking to the elders and sitting there saying, this is what's coming. This is who I'm sending. Why would they listen to him? Because they were told that, hey, there's a guy coming. Maybe they didn't tell him it was Moses, but there's a guy coming that's going to say this. You know why I know that has to be real? Because it happens to me almost every single week. Because I have that confirmation that comes to me to sit there and says, somebody comes to me and says, hey, this is what you, and it's like, that's what I'm teaching on this week. Confirmation, it's sitting there saying that God is real. See, I know that God is real, but Moses right now, he's about ready to experience it firsthand. Now, let me tell you something why it doesn't mean so much to me, because I never looked at it as Moses as being an unbeliever. I never looked at it that way. But as I'm sitting there reading it, he didn't know. He didn't know who this God was, this God of the Israelites. And in an honest opinion, whenever they go into Egypt, I bet you most of the Israelites didn't know who the God of Israel was either. Because they started putting their trust, their comfort into what was there rather than what was here. That was the change. Who feeds us? Who gives us a job? Who gives us a roof on our head? What did they complain about when they got out into the wilderness? We had meals. We had some place to stay. We had water. We had all this stuff. But God, Moses, you took us out of Israel for this. But for this, really? So this is what's the signs that God took and He gave? So He started out with Moses, and He sat there and said, when Moses sat there and basically, well, what if they don't believe that God? And what happens? He says, well, you got your staff in your hand, right, Moses? Yeah. Throw it on the ground. Oh, great. What's this guy going to do now? Throws it on the ground, turns to a snake. Ah! He runs away. It actually says he ran away. He ran away from the snake. The snake's on the ground. He sits there and goes, oh, go pick it up. He picks it up. It turns back to a staff. Well, that's a neat parlor trick. I mean, you're a burning bush. What can't you do? Put your hand down in your cloak. Pull it back out. He puts his hand in his cloak, pulls it back out. His hand turns white, leprous. He's, ah! Wow, that's on me now. That's not something. This is on me. This wasn't a stick. This is on me. Okay, oh, what's this going to be on me? Moses put it back in the cloak and pull it back out. It's back normal again. All right, so it's one thing that he could have rigged a stick, but it's another thing. I mean, come on. Looks in his cloak. Did he change out cloaks with me? Nope, nothing in there. So Moses is like, this is the real deal Holyfield going on right here. This is what's happening right here, right now. And I'm going to sit there and I'm going to look at this and say, well, what else? What happens when I get there? We'll take a bucket of water out of the Nile and pour it on the ground and it turns to blood. Well, you're right about the other two things, so I'm guessing this one's going to be right too. Who were the questions? Who was the signs for? Who were they for? Answer. Who were the signs? Who was God doing that for right then and there? Moses. Because he needed to prove a point to Moses that he was the I am. You see, whenever he took and he went into Egypt, he did the same thing when they started having the plagues. You can imagine they're proving a point to the Egyptians, but it was proving a point to the Israelites that weren't 100% with it. Like, man, this is the God we serve. This is the God of Abraham. This is the God of Isaac and Jacob. But we haven't been following nothing. The God did lead us out from where we were to be where we're at so that way we can live on. See, there's one thing, God is patient. God is patient with us. See, when we're in that point, we have to understand that we feel like we're behind where we're supposed to be, or we're not doing enough where we're supposed to be. God's patient. He's sitting there saying, you know what? You're good. You're good. You're honestly just hurting yourself, but I'm going to be here for you when you're ready. I know you're comfortable right now, but I'll be here when you're ready. See, God wants us to see that those trees that I have, they actually didn't do that the first 4 years. Jenna actually asked me, she says, why in the world are those things growing on the trees? It's so ugly. That's why I go out there and start chopping them off. Because we hadn't seen that happen to our trees in 4 years. But it's the new growth that it's the right time. It's the right time for it to start growing out. It's the right time for that tree. For whatever reason it is, that's not my job. But for whatever reason, it's the right time that those trees are starting, that they didn't do it for the last 4, are starting to grow. You say, well, I look at it from the natural and say, we haven't had that much rain this year. I wouldn't think that this year would be the year they did it. But it is. They're growing. They're expanding. They're becoming more full of life. See, that new growth comes out, and it gives me confidence that basically things are going the right way, that it's not going to be dead. Myself, when that new growth starts growing in me, when I start putting myself in a place that God is going to take and show me favor, that growth is going to come out of me, and it's going to grow so much that maybe sometimes I feel like I might be a little bit ugly with it, but you know what? I know that I'm living. Because when I'm living, things get messy when I'm living. But I know what's happening. Because when God starts showing me favor, it's typically because something went wrong. When things are going so great, people don't look at God. We just need to show signs of new life. I'm going to go to 1 Peter 2. And it says, like newborn infants long for pure spiritual milk, that if you may grow up into salvation, if indeed you have tasted that the Lord is good. As you come to him, a living stone rejected by men, but in the sight of God chosen and precious, you yourself, like living stones, are built as a spiritual house to be holy priesthood, to offer spiritual sacrifice acceptable. This is what to be acceptable to God through Jesus Christ. I am the unwanted stone that nobody wanted, that God took and turned into a cornerstone to build something great. See, the cornerstone isn't the pretty stone. The cornerstone is just the stone that can take it. When I was over in Israel, I was looking at the stones that were, the way things happen is they go and they tear down the cities when somebody conquers, and they build another city on top of it, and they tear that one down, and the next person conquers, and they build another one on top of it. So you end up having 3, 4, 10, 15. Beit Shean, there's a city there that there's a mound there, and they call it a tell, and that tell is millennia full of temples that got tore down, and they just keep building on top of it. Well, it looks like a big hill. You remember seeing it, right? Looks like a big hill. But it actually isn't a hill. It's life after life after life after life after life that was there before. It was that death. It's showing what was to what is now. But you have this cornerstone in Jerusalem, and there's one spot on the city, and it's actually by the Muslim graveyard, and it's the only spot in the city that you can see the original, like Solomon temple walls. Or not, it'd be on the temple. But, the stones are huge cuts, cornerstones, massive stones. And you can tell the difference between those stones and the stones that got built above it. And that's what I have a picture of me standing next to it and like touching it, because it's like, hey, there's a chance that Christ could have touched this wall. There's a chance. Because I know this was there. All the other stones that I walked around and touched, they weren't there. Those were new. They were small. These other ones, he was here. There's a chance that he could have been walking from Peter, he could have been walking from somewhere and walked past it when he was going to the temple, and he could have laid against there to get out of the afternoon sun, because that's what I did. But it was that cornerstone that was there. It was built on it. It's still there. See, God took and makes us a cornerstone so that way we're still there. So that way we can start producing life. Because, see, even though those stuff got tore down and got built back up, tore down, built back up, tore down, built back up, guess what? It kept producing life. Whenever Muhammad went in and took, basically, whenever he had his vision on top of the mountain, he went, and it was because the Israelites, the Jews, they took and they abandoned it because they were afraid of attack again. Basically, why are we going to rebuild it again when somebody's just going to tear it right back down? And so they left this holy site abandoned. And when I look at our lives and look at what happens with us, is that we can have an opportunity to open ourselves up and leave ourselves abandoned to give the not truth come in and try to build something on our site. So if you don't know that the temple that's over there on top of the Solomon's area, that's where Solomon's temple was at, and that's where the Haman's temple is sitting there. And the reason why it's sitting there is because it was left abandoned. Why it's so important for us is to take and realize that Jesus Christ has made us a cornerstone, and to realize that we have to keep expanding and building and protecting and becoming new and having that new life that just keeps getting, that new growth that keeps building up to us is important, because if we don't have that new growth, then we're going to die. So if I can take and I can look at a man like Moses, we're going to tie this together, right? If I can take a look at a man like Moses and see that somebody that was basically left the chance somehow becomes one of the highest ranked people in the Egyptians, falls from it, goes to another area, gets comfortable there, God raises him up, without him even knowing who his God truly was, raises him up, puts him in that place, and then takes him, makes him the deliverer of his people, then what can God do with me? Because my life isn't that complicated. You understand that? Our life isn't that complicated. The stuff that we look at people before that they had to struggle with, and it's still people in other countries that still are struggling with it. You know what? We have the best country in the world because we have the freedom to choose what we're going to do and what we're going to practice as our religion. Who do I believe in? Nobody's going to tell. You know what? People try to sit there and say that we're doing, or there's going to be sections of people. Well, let me tell you something. There's 85, 90% of people in the United States that qualify themselves as being Christian. Am I worried about the 10% of people that's going to take and criticize me? No. I don't want to grow and expand too much because then those people are going to take and are going to look at me bad. No. I have the majority with me. Whenever you think about Moses when they took and when they left Egypt, this is the thing about the Israelites, is that when they were there, they were the majority. Remember I talked about last week that says, well, I don't understand why whenever people were slaves that they wouldn't just take and rise up and just take care of it themselves? Because they felt like they were in bondage because they didn't feel that they had worth of themselves? Well, guess what? You are worthy of something because God chose you to be in this place, in the position that you are in right now. It's the same way that He chose Moses. But if we take and we choose, I feel like I'm losing you. This is why, the reason why it's so important to realize what Moses was and how Moses was is because to see how great it is that God took him from being essentially a non-believer to being a believer through the works that He saw him do. Let me ask you a question. Have you seen God do works in your life? Then at that point, you're sitting there and you're a believer. Then you have the chance to expand and to grow, and you're a believer because you see what's happening, and you took and you accepted Jesus Christ to be your Lord and Savior, and you got that true salvation that came from Him. Because the salvation that came from Jesus Christ came because He was the sacrifice that laid it down for us. Yeah, I wrote this in my notes at the end because I was sitting up on the drums. Abraham was given a people, he was given a promise. Joshua was given a land. Jesus gave us eternity. What do you believe? What do you believe? What position are you in? Are you ready to grow? Are you ready to expand? Are you ready to become more? Are you ready to take that next step? Are you ready? Are you ready to be a little bit ugly to the world? Because I'm going to grow. Because I want that new life. Because I want to know that I'm fruitful. We know that parable that Jesus had, that he went to the fig tree, and because the fig tree wasn't producing fruit, what did He do? He cursed the fig tree. They go back the next day. Gone. Dead. We have to take and be a little bit ugly. We have to grow. We have to have that new life start coming out of us. I'm not saying that stuff has to stay. Because see, I told you I go and I prune this stuff. If it's a good one, guess what I do? I leave it. And it grows and it goes bigger and grows more. It's not going to be one of those I hit my face when I go by with a lawnmower. But I'm going to keep it because that's what's supposed to happen. Let me tell you something right now. You're a keeper. You've grown. You've come from where you've been left to float around. You have grown and you become so much more than you'll ever even realize. Because God's going to be patiently waiting on you to fulfill what you're supposed to do. You guys just aren't excited about this enough. I must preach too much. Understand. Say it with me. I am a keeper. I feel good? Yep. I am a keeper. You know it, you'll grow with it. Say it for me one more time. I am. That's simple, isn't it? And nobody can take and put me down. What's that song? You're never going to put me down. I don't know. I'm not good with lyrics. So, oh, thanks. Go ahead. Now, the things I want you guys to understand is you have the promise of what Abraham had. You have the promise of Joshua, and you have the promise of Jesus Christ. If you take and you want to cover your eyes and act like nothing's going on, then the fact of the matter is you will die off. You will. And by guessing that a person sitting at church on a Sunday morning, that they could be out doing whatever they wanted to do on a Sunday morning, is the fact of the matter is that you're sitting in here today because you don't want to die off. Because you want to grow, because you want to be more. And today I hope what you realize is that you are a keeper. Today what I hope you realize is that God is patient, that God's willing to wait. The thing I want you to realize is that if somebody that like as influential as the deliverer of Israel can go through it, then why can't I? Understand it. Grab it. Be encouraged with it. Get that new life. Get that growth. Get it expanded out. Become so much more than what you can imagine right now because you're actually putting God first in your life instead of saying, I will. I am. I do. I am following the I am. See, it's not so crazy when I say it, is it? He is the I am. And you say, amen. I say, He is the I am. And I say, He is the I am. Because He is everything that there is, everything that was, and everything that is to come. That's the God we serve. That's the God we follow. That's the God that sent His Son to this earth to die for us so that way we can take and we can have this new covenant to live on and have the grace that we can have things that go wrong in our life and we're not bound by that anymore. Can you stand on your feet with me today? I know I do the same thing every week, right? You know why? When God takes, not God that did this, it's when man did it. When I know it's so uncomfortable for me to do it, then I know it has to be something good. Do you understand what I said with that? When it's uncomfortable for me to do it, it's got to be something good. So God gives us this. I want us to make a declaration a declaration on ourselves to what we're going to be for God. Do you understand that? A declaration on myself what I'm going to be for God. He's the one that I'm concerned about. I love you all to death, but you know what? He's the one. I want you to, I am worthy. I am not afraid. I am the I am of I am. You didn't repeat that. I am his. I am his. I am of the I am. I am of the I am. See, you guys, he's like, he's messing up. I am that I am. I am the I ams. I am the I ams. Boy, that's a lot of self-worth that's going on right here. That guy's full of himself. You're right. I am full of the I am. I am. I can't quit saying I am.